Okay, this is day 3 on this 6-6 lesson. If you have the notes in front of you, fine. And if you don't, that's okay. So I am going to have us go to number 1 on the back of the front page. And we're going to start with this one. So like I said, if you want to take notes because you have the paper printed out, that's fine. And if not, and you just want to watch, that's fine too. Okay, so first thing I need to do is figure out how many answers I'm going to have. And do you know how many answers I'll have total when I'm done? That's right, I'm going to have 4. So there's going to be 4 zeros, 4 complex roots. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find the answers on my calculator. Okay, so I am going to go to my y equals of my calculator, and I'm going to type in that equation that we just had there. So I'm going to clear this off. Okay, so it was x to the 4th. So x raised to the 4th. And then I'm going to have to right arrow to get the cursor down. Okay, minus 6x squared. So minus 6x squared. And in the back, plus 8. All right, so we have plus 8. Okay, and then I'm going to hit graph, and let's see how many times it touches the x-axis. Okay, it touches 4 times, so there are 4 real answers. There's no imaginary answers, but that doesn't always mean that the answers are pretty. So it looks like this one could possibly be a -2, but that one looks like a decimal. That one looks like a decimal. That might be 2. Okay, so I'm going to go second graph, and I'm going to try to look at this. Okay, so -2 is an answer, and that's because there is a 0 in the y column. So -2 is an answer. And that, what does that say? Oh, that's not a 0. That looked like a 0, but it's not. And then +2 is an answer because there's a 0 in the y column. Okay, so those other answers are decimals. So -2 and +2 are answers. So I've got 2 of the 4 answers. So because I have 2 answers, I'm going to do synthetic division twice to get this 4 down to a 2. All right, so I just pick one of my zeros and I put it in the box. So let's just do the -2 first. So first you put the 0 in the box. Pull down the coefficients, drop, drop, drop. So in front of the x to the 4th is a 1, but there's no x cubed, so I need to put a 0. -6 is in front of the x squared, but there's no x, so I have to put a 0. And then the constant is an 8. Remember, if it's ever missing something, you have to put zeros in as replacements. So where there wasn't an x cubed, I put a 0, and where there wasn't an x, I put a 0. All right, so I bring down the first number, and then multiply 1 times -2. Add these together, that makes -2. Back to multiplying, that makes 4. Add those together, that's -2. Back to multiplying, -2 times -2, that's +4. Back to adding, 0 plus 4 is 4. Back to multiplying, -2 times 4 is -8. And back to adding, I get 0. And remember, if you don't get a remainder of 0 when you're doing these, then you know something's wrong because you have to have a remainder of 0. All right, so I'm going to take this next 0, which is +2, and I'm going to put it in the box right here. And I'm just going to keep working with these numbers that I got when I worked the last one. So I'm just going to put this so where you can't even see those, and this is all you see. So bring down the first number, so bring down your 1, and then multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. Add these, that's 0. Multiply, 0 times 2, that's 0. Add these, that's -2. Multiply, 2 times -2, that's -4. And add, 4 plus -4, that's 0. Okay, so remember, the first time you did synthetic division, this x to the 4th here would become an x cubed. But then the next time you do it, this 1 is going to be in front of an x squared. So this is 1x squared or x squared. The 0 would be in front of the x, but 0 times anything is just 0, so that goes away. After the x comes the constant, so that's just -2. Remember, this last number is your remainder. So if your remainder is 0, you don't have to write it. And then all I need to do is set this answer equal to 0 and solve it, and I'll be done. And the great news for us, once again, is we can do the square root method because there's no plain x in the problem. As long as there's a 0 in front of the x, these guys are our friends because they don't take long to solve. So to get x squared by itself, we're going to get rid of that subtraction of 2 by adding 2. The x squared is going to come down. The equals is going to come down. 0 plus 2 makes 2. To get rid of a squared, we square root. And then we slap down our plus minus. And then there's no I because there's no negative. I can't take the square root of 2, nor can I break it down. So that's just it. So here are 2 answers. And the other 2 answers came from the calculator. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 total answers. And that's that. Okay? All right, let's look at another one where we have to do synthetic division twice. All right, so let's look at number 8 in the notes, if you can see it. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my calculator and see if it touches the x-axis in any nice locations. Okay, so that's kind of a big boy. All right, so I'm going to go to my y equals, and I'm going to type this in. So I'm going to clear what I have there. I've got 2x raised to the 4th. Got a right arrow to pop the cursor down. And then plus a negative 5x cubed. Got a right arrow to pop the cursor down. Minus 17x squared plus 41x minus 21. And then I'm going to hit graph, see what happens. Okay, so it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3 real answers, but I know that there are supposed to be 4 answers because the highest exponent's a 4. Now, that doesn't mean that all of these are pretty, so I'm going to say that that one right there looks like a decimal, that looks like 1, and that looks like negative 3. So let me go to the table. So second graph. And sure enough, here's negative 3. It's an answer because there's a 0 in the y column. And 1 is an answer because there's a 0 in the y column. And I could search for others, but whoo, those are big numbers over there in the y's, so definitely not those. And same thing, they start getting really big over here in the y's. So negative 3 and positive 1 are answers. So let's write that down. So we've got x equals negative 3. And we've got x equals 1. And then I'm going to do synthetic division twice to make this 4 go to a 2. And it doesn't matter which one you start with as far as which one you put in the box. So I'm just going to start with the first one I wrote down, which was negative 3. So first you put the 0 in the box. Pull down the coefficients, drop, drop, drop. In front of the x to the 4th is 2. In front of x cubed is negative 5. In front of x squared is negative 17. In front of x is 41. And the constant is negative 21. Okay, I didn't need any zeros because it wasn't missing anybody. It had everybody. It had x to the 4th, x cubed, x squared, x constant. All right, so I'm going to bring down the first number. So I'm going to bring it down and then multiply. Negative 3 times 2, negative 6. Add them together, and I'm going to get negative 11. Multiply negative 3 and negative 11, I get 33. Add these together, I get 16. Multiply negative 3 and 16, I get negative 48. Add those together, I get negative 7. Multiply negative 3 and negative 7, I get positive 21. Add those together, I get 0, which is what I wanted. So remember, if you don't get a remainder of 0, something's gone wrong. So you just want to try to back up and see if you can find it. So now I'm going to take my next 0, which is a 1, and I'm going to put it in the box. So first you put the 0 in the box. And then I'm looking at my answers, and that's what I'm going to work with. So let me cover everything else up so it's not overwhelming. So bring down the first number. So I'm going to bring my 2 down. And then multiply. 1 times 2 makes 2. Add these together. That's going to make negative 9. Multiply 1 and negative 9. Add these together. That's going to make 7. multiply 1 times 7, add these together, and that's going to make 0. Okay, so remember the first time I did this, my exponent goes down 1. So this x to the 4th, the first time I did it, went to x cubed. The next time I do it, it becomes x squared. That's in front of the x, and that's the constant. So what I have going on is 2x squared minus 9x, and then a plus 7. Remember that last number there is just the remainder, so I don't have to do anything with it. And then I would have to solve this to get my final answer. Okay, so I could try to factor this, but I'm going to do this with quadratic formula. Okay, so I need to list who my A is, who my B is, who my C is, and go from there. So A is 2, because that's the number in front of the x squared. B is negative 9, because that's the constant. And C is 7. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. A is 2, because that's the number in front of the x squared. B is negative 9, because that's the number in front of the x. And C is 7, because that's the constant. All right, and then I'm also going to calculate my b squared minus 4ac. So remember, when you do this in the calculator, you need to have parentheses where your b is, where your a is, and where your c is. Okay, and I'll type that in my calculator in just a second. So into the b, I'm going to put the negative 9. Into the a, I'm going to put my 2. And into the c, I'm going to put my 7. And I'm going to type all of that right there into my calculator. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my computer because I'm trying to get you guys to get used to seeing this and get comfortable with it. Now, I'm going to quit this screen to get to the calculator. So second mode quits the screen. Second mode. And then I'm going to do what I just said. I had parenthesis, negative 9, close it, square it. Remember, this next one is a minus 4, parenthesis, put your A, which is a 2, close it, parenthesis, put your C, which is a 7, close it, and enter. And I get 25. All right, so that's what b squared minus 4ac gives me, is 25. Okay, so now I'm going to solve this with the quadratic formula. So I know I wasn't really singing this at the time, but I feel like singing now. I think we all need a little song in our life. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to plug in the numbers that I got. All right, so where it says opposite of b, I'm going to take the opposite of a negative 9, and that's a positive 9, plus or minus square root. We just found b squared minus 4ac to be 25, all over 2a. So if I take 2 times my a, 2 times 2, that's 4. Okay, once you're at this point, you want to work on your radical. So lucky for us, this is a perfect square, so he's going to come out pretty. So let's just take the square root of 25. And the square root of 25 is just a pretty little 5. Not square root, just a pretty little 5. And recopy the all over 4. So now I'm going to figure out, because there's no square roots or i's, I can work it out. I'm going to take 9 plus 5, which is 14, and take 14 and divide by 4. Well, if I take 14 and divide by 4, I can divide both of those by 2, which would make 7 halves. So that's one answer. Then I'm going to do it with the minus. So 9 minus 5 is 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. And so those are my 2 answers that I got with the quadratic formula. And then these are my 2 answers that I got with the calculator for 4 total answers. Okay, so I know that probably seems a little overwhelming. All right, I'm only going to ask you to try one problem for me. Okay, so if you have the paper, it's called Assignment Over 6-6. Okay, it's linked on my Canvas calendar. So if you have it, you're welcome to look at it. If you don't have it, no big deal. I just need you to know that I want you to try this problem right here. It's the top number 2 on the page, and I want you to try it. You're going to end up doing synthetic division twice, but you don't have to use quadratic formula on this. This one will be the square root method. So I want you to try this problem. If you don't have this paper, I just want you to write this problem on something, on a piece of paper, on a sticky note, something, and I want you to work it out, and I want you to see what you get. You are going to need that graphing calculator, though, and then when you get it worked out, I want you to take a picture of it and post it on Canvas, okay? And then that's it. And then tomorrow we'll look at some more, and hopefully, you know, after days and days of looking at this assignment, you guys will understand. Okay, so work this problem out, take a picture of it, and then post to Canvas once you've got it done. And then we'll see how you did, and hopefully you guys will have done great. So work it out, take a pic, and post it to Canvas. All right, that's all for today. Smiley face.